evening, everyone. It is 5:30 or just about on October 14, 2019, and today we are beginning the sound test of the Focal Clear. Today we're going to talk about the bass response. But before we get there, let's take a quick look at what the manufacturer says, what Focal says. They're $1,500 headphones. They say the emotion of infinite space. I don't know what they are talking about. In the subtext here, they say, Clear are our brand new open-back high-fidelity headphones made in France by Focal. Continuing in the spirit of Utopia and Elir and using the best of Focal technologies, Clear offers the sensation of listening to your favorite music in a space that no longer has limits. Discover the emotion of music thanks to Clear's ability to recreate the tiniest details of the recording. So, a couple of things. Focal doesn't really say that these are mixing and mastering headphones. All this stuff about infinite space and not being in the same space, I don't know, that's just all marketing nonsense. And I don't know how many people are really taken into by this sort of stuff. What I can tell you is their definitive remark that it does bring out detail in a recording. Now, there are different types of detail presentation. There is a detail presentation as in bringing out the nuances of a song, the separation of every single little element in a mix. That's detail presentation. There's also another type of detail presentation, which is the headphone doesn't bring out anything that other headphones have a hard time bringing out. Instead, they clean and clear the music. In other words, no distortion and very little melding of the frequencies, of the tonalities in the frequency range. In other words, everything just sounds, crystal clear. Not that there's a lot of detail to be brought out, but what detail is present is run-of-the-mill, but it is absolutely clear to listen to. Okay, so those are, in my personal opinion, two different types of detail. And we're going to find out exactly what Focal is talking about. Is it bringing out the nuances, or is it just presenting what it has very cleanly? Let's get to it then. So we are going to test with our test playlist as always. Now we have 43 followers. Fantastic. We have 3 songs queued. Mountains by Hans Zimmer, Dreamer by Charli XCX, and you know I hate Dreamer, but I'm gonna go on the limb here and I'm gonna try Dreamer because let's hope the Focals can present this song, which is a terrible song, in a less terrible way. Finally, we're going to listen to Drum Solo by Jack Bruce and Simon Phillips. We have the headphones plugged in by single end into the Massdrop THX AAA 789. The gain is set at 3, and currently the volume knob is set at approximately 9 o'clock, which is fairly loud for these 55 ohm headphones. All right, let's get started with Mountains. Here we go. So at 9 o'clock, I can sense that I can probably put in a little bit more power. And now I've taken this up to about 11 o'clock, and I can hear that rumble there's a great clean presentation of that sub bass, and that sub bass is that rumble. A lot of times headphones will take that rumble and create a thundering type of sensation, right? So it just sounds really overpowering. The clears, however, the way that they're presenting that quote-unquote rumble is much more tight. So it's not a rolling, thunderous type of rumble. Instead, it's just very fast and very well controlled. It doesn't seem to be reverberating long. So it comes in and it fades very, very quickly instead of other headphones that just kind of leave it rumbling for a second or half a second longer. I'm going to increase the volume again. We are now just about at 1 o'clock. Absolutely fantastic separation of all the instruments. I feel I could probably take it even louder. Now, I said these are 55 ohm headphones, and they are. My hesitation taking it any louder is because we're about to hit the crescendo any moment now, and that might just destroy my ears. No distortion, no peakiness, no harshness, no melding of the frequencies. Very crystal clean. And the crescendo is about to hit in a few moments. I'm going to increase the volume a little bit, and I'm going to keep increasing it. The volume is just past 1 o'clock, and wow, that is phenomenal. That is true, clean, fantastic rumble and separation. Holy cow. All right, so here's the thing. I don't remember the last time I listened on the clears with mountains, and I'm really glad I'm listening to it right now because the way that it's presenting the rumbliness, the organ, the brass instruments, it's just so amazing. And that doesn't give you any idea what I'm talking about. So by amazing, I mean everything has a good, clean separation. It's not the best separation I've ever heard. Okay, so there's no clean, hardline separation like there would be with something like, I don't know, the HD800S. But what separation is there is accurate, it's fast, and it's clean. There is no, I can't really tell there's a melding of any of the frequencies, especially at this high volume, especially at the crescendo, where there would be a melding of the frequencies. Now, some of the issues that other headphones have, one of the issues at this portion of the song is that other headphones start taking that bass, that rumble, and then it ratchets it up because they are bass-heavy headphones, or they are headphones that prefer more bass or tuned a little bit more in the bass region. The Focal, I don't think that they are increased in bass at all. I also don't think that they are bass anemic. They are seem to be fairly neutral in that regard. And on top of that, when the rumble does start to ratchet up in volume at the midway, when the organ comes in with full force, it simply just, you can feel the ear cups just vibrating slightly. It's not overbearing reverberation. It's just a slight bit of reverberation. And with that slight bit of reverberation, here's what happens. This is all about subjective listening experience. I got a smile on my face because I want to feel the reverberation, like I'm sitting there in this huge hall in this church listening to that organ. I have a bit of that sensation without any of the distortion, without any of the frequencies getting melded or lost in the details. Okay, so very, very clear. I'm going to go back a couple of seconds, about 2 minutes, and I'm going to listen to that crescendo again. And I'm going to leave it at this volume at about 1 o'clock, let's say 2 o'clock. Let's turn it to 2 o'clock. Now it's at 2 o'clock. So because I want to figure out what exactly is going on. Okay, so here we go again. As the volume starts coming up, good separation of all the instruments, no melding. Here comes the crescendo, crystal clear, no peakiness, no harshness. I can feel the ear cups reverberating just a little bit. All the instruments are still clearly audible. Very, very nicely done. This has kind of a theatrical presentation versus a studio presentation, okay? Here's the difference. When you're sitting in a movie theater and you're watching this movie, and all the speakers are blaring. Now, those speakers are tuned specifically so that you have the sensation you're inside the sound. That's why the speakers, those loudspeakers are positioned very carefully. They're scientifically calculated to be presented in that particular manner because they want to surround you with the sound and you feel as if you're lost in it. That's a different type of presentation than, say, an audiophile loudspeaker system. And here's why, in my opinion, With an audiophile loudspeaker system setup, you want to be able to pick out the nuances in a song. right? Every little detail. At a movie theater, you want to feel as if you are in it. You want to have that emotional expression, like something is happening right now. There's a different way of presenting those two emotions. One, the audiophile, which is I want to get all the detail. I want to just be immersed in the detail, versus the other one where I want to be immersed in what's going on in the movie. Does that make sense? And the clears are more the latter in this respect, at least with this song, where you feel like you're right there. I could be sitting in this medium-sized church and this organ's playing and the orchestra is playing and we're at this portion. That's how it feels. It feels like I'm being surrounded by the music and it's just all around. Now, there's a give and take here. The first is that the clears do not have exceptional soundstage. So all that marketing gimmick about infinite space, I don't know what they're talking about. It's not wide soundstage. I think the soundstage is above average. It's not like the HD 800S. It's probably closer to the HD 700. We'll do a comparison, but it's very, very close to that, I think. Overall, fantastic separation, no peakiness, no harshness, no distortion, even at this really high volume with this song where other headphones would probably start falling apart with the distortion that the organ creates. Okay, very good presentation, I think. Okay, I brought down the volume to about 11 o'clock, and now we are headed to Dreamer by Charli XCX. And if you know anything about Dreamer, you know that I very much dislike Dreamer because there's a lot of distortion built into that song, and headphones simply can't help it. So let's see if the vocals can. Here we go. At the beginning of this song, there's this low rumble that can get really annoying because it just seems to be all there is in the song. But the vocals, the clears, very well controlled. That sub bass is very tight and frankly subdued. Now she's saying, I'm a dreamer, and that bass comes in, and that bass has a lot of reverberation built into it. Excellent separation, amazing separation. That sub bass frequency is, I think, a little bit de-accentuated, meaning anemic. It's rolled down so that that sub bass doesn't interfere. Her voice, crystal clear. The vocals are up front. The bass is where it's supposed to be, all the way in the back. This is amazing. I have never heard Charli XCX sound this good. She sounds awful, but she's never sounded this good before. All the backup singers are easily audible. Her voice, not harsh, not brittle, not grainy. That bass doesn't interact with her voice at all. There's a little bit of bumping up against it. There's no hardline separation, but it's so very close. No distortion at all. Now the soundstage sounds, like I said, above average. I can hear the bass just behind my ears, just right behind my ears. And it's just rumble that doesn't interfere with the vocal at all. So if you go back at the beginning of my channel to the earlier videos where I started doing my test playlist, I used to play Dreamer often. And I would say repeatedly, the voice just gets lost. There's too much muddiness. There's just way too much distortion. I can't understand what she's saying. That is not the case with the clears. I am, frankly, very surprised. I am very, very surprised with the way that Dreamer is being presented. Because the tonality of that vocalist could not be, well, let's be honest, clearer. It could not be better. Her voice is not brittle. It's not harsh. There's no peakiness. There's no ear piercingness. There's no unnecessary reverberation involved with the way that the bass is being presented. It sounds really, really good. And I am, frankly, if I had heard Dreamer in this way from the very beginning, I wouldn't have hated the song as much as I do. And I still hate the song. No matter how many times I listen to it on the Focals, I still hate the song. It's just that none of the other headphones I've ever tried with Dreamer that I remember have ever really presented this song as, let me use an audiophile term just for once, please, sweetly and musically. Oh, God, I think I just got a brain hemorrhage. It's almost like a competent person sat down and recorded this song and told Charli XCX and Stara and Ray and all these other porn stars, I don't know who the hell these people are, told them, girls, take it easy. We're not trying to drive people away. Ratchet that down. And that's basically what I'm getting here. It just sounds so smooth. It sounds smooth. No harshness, no rumbliness that really makes me want to throw the headphones off my head. Very clean, distortion-free presentation. I could not give higher remarks to any headphone than to say it made Dreamer sound good. Wow, that should be an award I give headphones. The Dreamer Award. You made that song less painful. All right, so let's now head on to Drum Solo by Jack Bruce and Simon Phillips. Okay, here we go. Where are we? Where is it? I had it here somewhere and I can't find it. Here it is, right in front of me. So one of the things that happens in Drum Solo is at the very beginning of this song, there's the audience that's screaming and shouting, and it becomes ear-piercy. Let's see if the Focals present that ear-piercy treble with the audience at the very beginning. Here we go. Volume is at 11 o'clock. Nope. Well subdued. No ear-pierciness at all. I mean, there was no danger of my ears getting hurt. I'm going to increase the volume to 1 o'clock so I can really get the meat of the drums. Took it up to 2 o'clock. Ooh. That's sharp-sounding drum. I can actually hear the drum falling away from like boing, boing sound. A little bit of, not a whole lot, but just enough that I can say it's there. That, though, the drum strikes are fast. I almost said visceral. They're very close. Oh, wow. No haziness whatsoever to the music. It doesn't sound like the drums are veiled or covered with some sort of sheet. Hard hits on the top of that drum head. Bam, bam, bam. Comes and goes very quickly. Each separate drum strike has its own particular tonality, left and right, as the drummer is playing. In fact, so here's something that I haven't yet to pick up on other headphones, maybe because I haven't been paying that much attention, but here's the thing. The clears, right around this portion of the song, about 1 minute and 10 seconds, as the drummer is riffing on the drum heads. Imagine for a moment, you're drumming, and you pick up your right drumstick and you smash down. Pick up your left drumstick, smash down the other drum head. And you keep doing this over and over again, right? Obviously, that's a drummer. Every time that your drumstick comes down on the top of that drum head, there's a chance that the drumstick is actually going to hit not just the drum head, but might hit a metal portion around the drum head, the ring around the drum head. There's a slight chance of that, depending on how you hold your drumstick. It's not supposed to happen, but it happens. The other thing is that sharp report, right? It goes tick, tick, tick. I mean, just really sharp. It's just that initial smacking of the air, right? It goes tap, right on top of the drum head. So it does two things. Number one, and this is the one that's harder to tell because headphones don't do a great job at this, generally speaking. When that drumstick comes down on the top of that drum head, it presses down on top of the fabric, on top of that membrane, not fabric, it's a membrane. And the air on top of that membrane gets pressed, right? Just like sharp pressed, and it escapes. It's almost like, right? When you do that, when you slap I should have given you a warning, sorry. When you slap your hands like really hard, that sound is just the sharpness of the skin-on-skin contact as well as the air, right? So when the drumstick is hit on top of that drum head, you hear that air being just pressed down on top. Just whatever little bit there is, you hear it. And then the second thing is you hear the drum head itself contracting, being pressed down from the force, and the air inside the drum barrel itself also contracting, and yada, yada, yada. So those are the two different types. Now, more often than not, the vast majority of the time, headphones reproduce that drum head being pressed down and the air inside the drum barrel being pressed, okay? It's very hard to hear that initial strike on top of the drum head. It's very hard to pick that apart, to get that separated. And the clears absolutely separate that. You hear it. You hear that that drumstick hitting the head, and then you hear the actual drum, the tonality of that drum. I'm going to go back just a couple seconds and listen for that again, 1 minute and 15 seconds or so. Here we go. Yeah, clearly audible. Every time that drum stick hits, there's this pop of this air. Pop, pop, pop. Very cool. Very, very cool. So, I have said that the Atticus and the XC have this visceral drum response, bass response, especially with drum solo. I have said that the Fostex TH900 have the best, and in my opinion they do, the best bass response bar none. Tight. Then, if you want to go cheap side, try to get some of that Fostex bass response. I always recommend the One More triple drivers because it gets really close for the money. Oh my gosh, it's really, really close for the money. Obviously, there's better, but then there's the clear. And the clear sits somewhere close to the XC and the Atticus, but not quite there. So the XC and the Atticus have just a bit more bass oomph, while also providing just a tiny bit more detail, just a little bit more. But it's very, very close. I have to say, I didn't know what to expect from this bass test, and I am frankly surprised. Very surprised, very pleased. So let's talk about conclusions. What do I think? Well, it has been a very long time since I've put on a pair of headphones that I have said, surprise me. The clears surprise me. Now, there's a lot of marketing gimmick involved. Infinite space, that gives you the impression that it's really wide-sounding. It's not wide-sounding. They also have this shtick that they have M-shaped cones or drivers in the clears to help them sound more like the Focal loudspeakers. Well, I've never heard Focal loudspeakers, so I can't say what they sound like. I would say that these headphones sound better than any loudspeakers that I've heard of. And obviously, I'm not talking about $15,000, $20,000 loudspeakers. I'm talking about, a couple of $1,000 loudspeakers. I've heard those. And loudspeakers in that price range, $2,000 to $3,000, $4,000, they sound good, very good. But they also have a bit of distortion and a bit of muddiness involved with them, depending on which loudspeaker you get. The clears, however, are absolutely clear. I mean, the name could not be more appropriate as far as the bass test goes. Very clear sounding, no distortion, no haziness, no muddiness, no peakiness, no harshness, no treble spike that I could find that's harmful. I mean, there are treble spikes, especially in drum solo, but even at 2 o'clock, which is exceptionally loud, my ears were totally fine. This is a headphone that is really well controlled. It is the type of headphone where I would sit there and go, I cannot decide which one is more visceral. I mean, it would be a hard pick. Now we'll do plenty of tests, but I can tell you right now, I mean, this is very, very close to an XC and an Atticus type of visceral bass response with drum solo, this song. As far as the sub bass is concerned, I think there's a bit of a roll-off, or a considerable roll-off in the sub bass region, which is to its benefit. And here's why. When headphones don't roll off that sub bass region, instead elevate it, it starts getting really muddy and distorted very, very fast, especially if there's a sub bass type of song like Dreamer or even Mountains. Those types of songs accentuate the sub bass a little bit too much. And if you have a pair of headphones that accentuates it even more, then the song starts getting distorted. The clears are not like that. Instead, what you get is, because of the roll-off of the sub bass, is you get a very clean, crystal clear presentation of everything. Not the best separation of all the instruments, no absolute hardline separation of instruments that I can tell so far, but it's enough for me to say, that's one instrument, that's another instrument, that's another instrument. But the biggest thing for me, frankly, is that there's no bass distortion. Once you take that out of the equation, the bass distortion, if that's gone, everything else just kind of fits into place. Whether or not there's absolute separation of all the instruments, they just all slot in very, very carefully and comfortably. And that's how I feel about these headphones. I hope that this has been of some help if anybody's been considering the clears. I know they're very, very expensive headphones. Every once in a while, you can find them on eBay for cheaper, substantially cheaper than MSRP. Very good headphones as far as I can tell now. We're going to continue this test. We're going to go into the mids and then the treble, and then we will start comparing them to other headphones. If you like this content, if you enjoy what I do with my channel, then I hope that you might consider donating a couple of bucks a month on Patreon per month. I only said month. I said month twice. And the reason I'm asking is because, it's not easy to save up money and buy these new products, because I don't get hand-me-downs from manufacturers. I mean, I don't have an agreement with manufacturers. I'm not trying to court manufacturers. I just want to do my own thing. And the best way to be honest and the best way to be just upfront is by buying these products and going through a thorough review process without the fear that I'm going to get reprisals from manufacturers if I don't say the right thing. So a few bucks a month, $2, would go a long way to helping me save up money for future purchases that I can then review for you. If you like this channel, but you are not a subscriber, then please consider subscribing, because I love getting new notifications every day about a new subscriber. We are well past 530 now, and I want to get to that 600 mark, because I really, truly do appreciate each and every one of you, and it would be fantastic for us all together to get the 600. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you have a suggestion or a request for me to conduct a review of a particular product I currently own, then please go down into the description and click on the review request form, submit it, and I will get to that review request as soon as I possibly can. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for taking a part of this fantastic, clear review of the bass. This is really good. It was a lot of fun. I hope all of you have a wonderful night, and do please take care.